All right, let's first go on to Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora and see where that is currently at. So last time I spoke about the fact that Sebastian Fundora is out for 6 months. So he won't be fighting anytime soon. I think November, if he's fighting. I think he comes out in September. But and Tszyu doesn't come back until May. But rewind it back and let's have a look at Tszyu's promoter after the fight and what he had to say in terms of the rematch. All right, let's just take a listen.
Someone tell us exactly what the rematch clause says.
He knows there's a rematch clause there. He knows there's a rematch. If we want to take it, we'll take it. And I'd love to see Tim take that and win them belts straight back. So I'm happy for a rematch to happen next. And
So, according to Tszyu's promoter, there is a rematch clause. But I think the rematch clause or the rematch might have been a rematch promise verbally. I don't think it was actually a written contract. So, not that that really matters, but yeah, let's continue.
good luck trying to get out of it.
You know the
Good luck
nature
trying to get
of
out of
big
it.
fights and, does a loss here scupper Crawford and Spence in the short term?
It definitely affects the schedule. Everything that we'd sort of planned for this year is now rejigged, but I don't think it's for a bad reason though either. It just means that there's now another fight for Tim to consider. So
Yeah, I think it's definitely, well, it has thrown the schedule back for what Tim Tszyu and his team were probably planning on wanting to achieve this year, considering that Sebastian Fundora is out for 6 months. So even to gain that rematch, not that he knew that at this point in time, but to now gain that rematch, you're going to wait until, November, maybe. I doubt September because that's when he's coming back. But yeah, probably around November. So you're probably going to want to squeeze a fight in, at least one fight in there. You don't, and yeah, as I mentioned before, Tim Tszyu, noting his past recently, he's going to want to be active, which has been very good for him. The fact that he's been active, I think, has kept him at that top level and at the top of the ranks in his weight class. So you don't want to stop that. You want to continue the momentum, continue the drive.
yeah,
Kind of get the sense the rematch is there, but Tim still wants the bigger fights rather than the rematch. Is that?
Well, I was just asked a question if I'd love to see Tim have the rematch next, and I said yes originally, and I thought, well, look, if an opportunity to fight Errol Spence pops up, or an opportunity to fight Terence Crawford or anyone else as well, if one of those pops up, you're silly to not consider it. But
And I think that's where you can continue your momentum in terms of, or Tim can continue his momentum in terms of progressing his profile, I guess, by fighting someone like Errol Spence. Crawford will probably be, I think Crawford will probably skip him until he potentially gets the belts back, because I think Crawford is going to be aiming for unification and then undisputed. I think that's going to be his aim, his long-term goal. So there's no point of fighting someone like Tim Tszyu when there's no belts on the line, because it's all risk without the reward.
all of those fights are fights that he'd love to have. They're fights that I'd love to see him in. He didn't lose anything tonight in his stocks. It just showed how much of a warrior Tim actually is, and how much he's ready to get in there and absolutely put everything on the line, because he's a bloke who couldn't see for 10 rounds, still managed to push it to a
100%
decision.
Is there a timeline with the rematch clause?
You're going to make me check my paperwork. Look,
maybe there was something on paper, because he's referring to checking his paperwork, so maybe it was more than just a verbal.
There's definitely a timeline, and we'll have a discussion over the next few days as to when we'll activate it, or whether any of these other big fish want to jump up and swim with Tim.
Just to confirm, like if Tim wants to fight Fundora next, that's the call.
Yeah, that'll be the plan. Yeah.
And he'll be here.
Well, that's still up in the air. You know, that's we've been able to put on great shows back home in Australia. The opportunity to fight here in Las Vegas, we're really excited about. We'd love to come back here again.
So now the location's going to be a big thing. I don't think it'll come to Australia. I think it will stay in the States. And now that people have had a glimpse of that fight, how bloody and messy it was, people will want to run it back and see it again and see how it turns out next time. So there's probably more interest in that fight happening again.
But we're open to wherever it lands.
Georgie, this isn't a loaded question, but do you regret it all taking that fight now on such short notice? I know it was unlucky that cut, but
No, not at all. I mean, you saw what I saw for them first 2 rounds. That fight was Tim.
I don't think that is even a factor in the fight. The fact that he took it last minute, yeah, it's definitely a risky thing because you're fighting someone completely different to the fighter that you're going to fight, and someone that's a lot taller. But I don't think that really made a difference until the cut. Once the cut happened, that was the only thing that changed the fight, and the main reason, well, it was the reason why Tszyu lost, because if he didn't have that cut, I don't think he would have lost. I mean, it's possible he could have, but I couldn't see it just from those 2 rounds and how much he was dominating. So taking it short notice, I don't think is it didn't end up being a factor, I don't think. It was just that cut.
Tszyu's fight. If he wasn't blinded by the blood, it definitely ends early in Tszyu's favour.
Yeah,
How proud
I think
are
so
you of
too.
that performance?
I'm very proud. Look, he talks about being a warrior. He talks about, how hard he wants to push himself. He showed that out there. He showed that. And, I've got nothing but respect for him and his team for the amount of work that they put in, because he was so prepared for that fight. A freak accident.
Anyway, this was after the fight that they interviewed Tszyu's promoter. So, and let's go on to Sebastian Fundora's promoter straight after the fight and what he had to say.
All week you said that Fundora was ready. What does tonight's performance of him prove?
What I say, he was ready and he will win. The only thing I thought that he would knock him out, but I didn't.
So he thought he was going to knock him out.
And he would get the rematch,
I
but not
couldn't say that.
in this moment. Now I need to maximize the most money for the fighter.
So if Fundora if he couldn't knock him out with Tszyu being blinded for 10 rounds and blood streaming down his face for 10 rounds and Tim rushing in because he knew that I've got to do something at the start when it started happening, when it started pouring into his eyes, you could see he was starting to rush it and getting caught with some shots. So if Sebastian Fundora couldn't knock him out with blood streaming down his face into his eyes for 10 rounds, then I don't see him knocking him out without blood, blinding him for 10 rounds. So I think this is going to give Tim more confidence if they do rematch, because he's just going to be like, well, he couldn't stop me and I couldn't really even see. So when I can see, I'm going to do a lot more damage to him. So it's going to be an interesting fight if it happens again.
And I believe he deserved it.
Is that Errol Spence Jr.?
That's correct.
Over Crawford? Like, does Spence more money? Or?
No, Crawford will not sell out 90,000 people in Dallas. I can tell you that much.
But is Crawford the better fighter that you think?
So he's saying, and this is after the fight, he's saying Spence, they're looking at fighting Errol Spence Jr. over Crawford because Errol Spence Jr. is the bigger money. So this is his words after the fight.
Yes, but like everybody wait, like Benavides wait. Why not Crawford? Let him wait one time or maybe twice, and then he
Yeah,
go.
let Crawford
Even with
wait.
Spence, losing the fight, Crawford beating, you still think the
Yeah,
value's
Crawford doesn't
better
but
on
deserve it.
Spence?
in the end of the day, is maximize the profit for the fighter. And it'd be stupidity for me not to do that for him.
So safer for Spence.
And besides that, boxing is business. As Mayweather, as everyone.
So would you say, not saying Spence is easy, but maybe more money, maybe get some ready for the Crawford fight, maybe in preparation?
I believe that this one of the point that, well, Spence is a really good fighter anyway, especially in.
So here they're just like dismissing a rematch with Tim Tszyu at this point. He's just dismissing it and talking about Errol Spence over Crawford, and then Crawford maybe after that. And yeah, just not even considering Tim Tszyu at this point.
54. So I believe that he will have a shot, but now you need to wait like it make to weigh others. That is the boxing world. It's not only one way, it's two way.
How do you think Spence and Fundora match up? What do you think happens?
So, but even with that, because Terence Crawford has initiated his option to be the mandatory fighter as the WBO title holder in that lower class. So he's initiated being the mandatory. So that means even if Sebastian Fundora if he was to fight Errol Spence, then that means he'll have to drop the belt. He'll have to drop the WBO belt and only fight for the WBC. So, like, you're just disregarding the belts and just like, well, you become unified. Now let's just drop one belt and fight Errol Spence for what you think is more money.
In that fight?
Now you want to enjoy it. We're going to the Hall of Fame now, and
all right. So that was him speaking after the fight. Let's fast forward it and see what he has to say. I don't know, what was it? A few days, maybe a week later on, after this interview, and we go to Deep Waters for Pro Box TV. And this is what he has to say.
Important promoters in all of boxing. Not only is he the promoter and manager of Sebastian Fundora, but also the promoter and manager of one of the biggest names in boxing, one of the hottest fighters on the planet, David Benavides. We're joined by Samson Lekovitz. Samson, thank you very much for taking the time to join us here on Deep Waters. How are you doing, sir? How's everything?
very good. It's my pleasure to be in my home, Roblox TV.
Thank you. Well, let's talk about the Fundora and Tim Tszyu. How real is the possibility of a rematch between those two?
Well, I give my word, and my word is a bond. And for 30 years, I comply with that. So the rematch will happen when both of them is ready to fight again.
So there you go. Oh, wait. I forgot. I gave my word. Sorry, I forgot all about that. Oops.
Yeah, Samson, can you speak to that? Can you speak to the injury sustained by Sebastian during the fight? You know, there were reports that he broke his nose and will be out of the ring until September, maybe even November. How damaged is the nose, and what are the doctors saying?
Well, it will not come back before November.
It will not come back before November.
Fundora say that the most important is the health of his boxer and son. So it will not happen before November. I'm not a doctor. I didn't talk about the injury, but this is the decision of the doctor of the Commission of Nevada.
Samson, both guys had bad injuries in the fight. It seems like both would probably be suspended for a while, and both would be out of action. Would this rematch be immediate rematch? Would there be fights in between and they rematch later? Because obviously a rematch, if it's not called for immediate rematch, can also happen at different times. When you say there's a rematch for the fight, are you discussing that for later, coming back from the injury? Would there be an in-between fight? Would there be?
I think it will be a rematch. It'll probably be Sebastian Fundora's first fight back after his injury. But I'm not sure about Tim Tszyu. I think Tszyu will try and squeeze at least one, maybe two fights prior to the rematch.
Direct rematch. What are your thoughts?
Well, the suspension for Tszyu is not so bad. He can
Yeah,
fight in June, July,
exactly.
because the cut what he have in the head is not so severe like it can be in the nose. Because even though if you fix, or surgery or whatever in the nose, you need to have time, maybe 3, 4, 5 months only to heal correctly.
Did
I'm not
Fundora
a doctor, but this is what
did
I,
Fundora
It must have been a pretty bad break, and it must be a break that's causing breathing problems. Uh, if there's some sort of surgery that's involved in it, it must be pretty bad.
Fundora suffered fractured nose, Samson?
I don't know if it's a fracture or it's a. I'm not a doctor. I saw the bleeding, but I don't know exactly what it is. I didn't spoke.
Because of 6 months.
That's what he said. The
Because a
commissioner.
6 month. Yeah, because a 6 month suspension for a nosebleed, I'm assuming it has to be fractured for a 6 month.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
you think
imagine
so?
yes.
6 months for a suspension for a nosebleed is not normal unless there's a
Yeah,
fracture. I'm
Yeah.
assuming. I'm assuming.
yeah. But I don't have the doctor. Beside, we have the official doctor of the commissioner, but I don't have any other doctor. And now he's in the mountains, enjoying his win with his sister and the father and the
Yeah,
whole family.
enjoy the win. You got 6 months to enjoy it before you have to come back and get in with the same guy. Get in with the same dangerous guy. Good luck. Enjoy your rest. Yeah. So that's, and I wonder like how bad it actually is, and it's if he's suspended till until September. Does that mean recovery wise he could be not training up until that point? Because yeah, if you're not training up until that point and then you're looking at trying to get a rematch in November, you've only got a very short brief window to spar and start training again. I mean, you could probably still start training, but getting in the actual ring and start actually sparring and allowing people to hit that nose. Yeah, so I think it's going to all depend on the recovery process and how long it's going to take. And maybe that's why it's that long suspension, because maybe he needs to get surgery and that repair time is going to be that long. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Anyway, wait and see what happens with this. It's on the back burner, and looks like we're going to see what happens towards the end of the year with this rematch.